Hey, amazing fans! Welcome to another relaxing moment with VIVA'S stories. Before we dive into the drama, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world to us. Now, grab a seat, sit back, relax, and let's journey into the story together. The storm rolled in just after midnight. Lightning flashed like a warning from the gods, splitting the darkness above the village of Agyadinta. Thunder boomed as though a war drum had been struck in the heavens. In the last mud hut on the edge of the forest, a woman screamed. Oh God, help me! Dolly clutched her swollen belly as pain ripped through her body again. Sweat poured down her face despite the cold night air. Alone, she crouched on the floor beside a worn-out mat, the scent of blood and rain mixing in the air. She had gone into labor hours ago. She had sent word to Aya Chica, the only midwife brave enough to deliver children at night. But Aya had refused. "I'm sorry, Dolly," she'd whispered at her door. "I can't help you. Not you. Not tonight." "Why?" Dolly had cried, clutching her stomach. "Please, I'm begging you. Because the last time I helped your bloodline, the baby didn't die, and that was the problem." The door had shut, and Dolly had stumbled home, alone with her contractions and her dread. The pain came again, and she bit her wrapper to stop from screaming too loud. No one would help her. Not since her husband disappeared 6 months ago. Not since the elders called her Omu, the womb of the grave. She didn't care anymore. She just wanted the pain to stop. She felt the head crown and screamed again, this time with all her might. "Jesus! Let it come out! Let it!" And then silence. No wind. No thunder. No cries. Just silence. She looked down and saw the child, slick with blood, eyes wide open, but not breathing. Its skin was cold. Too cold. It didn't move, but it didn't look dead. It just stared at her. Tears spilled from her eyes. "Cry," she whispered. "Please cry, my child." Nothing. Then, slowly, she reached for a broken piece of calabash she'd prepared to cut the cord. Her hands trembled. She paused. Something didn't feel right. The cord, it was black. Not dark red. Not brown. But like burnt rope. She jerked her hand back. The baby's eyes followed her hand. "Yezu!" She backed away slowly, the wind howling through the thatched roof now, whistling as though warning her. The baby's mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Then a knock. 3 slow knocks. She wrapped the baby in her wrapper and opened the door with shaking hands. A figure stood in the rain. It was Baba Kamlu, one of the village elders. His face was blank, soaked from head to toe. "I heard it," he said. "Heard what?" Dolly asked, voice hoarse. "The silence," he said. "It's louder than crying." She didn't understand. But Baba Kamlu stepped inside anyway, ignoring the blood on the floor, the mess, the storm. "Let me see it," he said. She unwrapped the baby slowly. Baba Kamlu took one look and recoiled. "Again," he whispered. "Just like her." "Like who?" Dolly asked, confused. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the door and turned back. "Don't bury it alone," he said. "And don't name it. Not yet." "Why?" "Because names call spirits. And some spirits should not hear their names called." Then he left. Dolly sank to the ground, clutching the still child, heart pounding in terror and confusion. She whispered again. "Cry, please. Cry. Just once." But the child did not cry. His eyes only blinked, and the rain continued falling like the sky itself was mourning. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the air in Agyadinta remained heavy, like the ground hadn't yet exhaled the storm. Dolly sat motionless on the stool outside her hut, a faded wrapper wrapped tightly around her. In her arms lay the baby, now stiff, its once staring eyes shut as if finally at peace. She hadn't slept. She hadn't eaten. She had only watched the sun rise over the Irako trees, waiting for what, she wasn't sure. Then she heard them, the chanting. Low, slow, and growing louder. 5 elders walked down the path toward her compound. They wore the ochre robes of the Council of Ancestral Judgment, their faces streaked with white chalk, their feet bare, dragging behind them bundles of palm ash and dry twigs. At the front was Baba Camel, holding a rusted iron staff. Behind him walked Mama Ezebi, the oldest living woman in Agudanta, her back bent, eyes milky, but her mind sharp as a machete. Ndali stood as they arrived. "Good morning, elders," she greeted, voice thin. "Where is the mat?" Baba Kamlu asked without returning her greeting. "Mat? The one you gave birth on." She hesitated. "Inside." Without permission, the elders entered her hut. They emerged moments later with the bloodied mat and the piece of calabash she had used to cut the strange black cord. Mama Ezebi sprinkled salt on the mat. Then Baba Kamlu said it aloud. "Burn it. Burn the shame. Burn the gate she opened." The mat was placed at the center of the compound. The calabash piece beside it. Mama Ezebi poured palm oil over the bundle, then lit a match. The flames rose instantly, unnaturally fast, reaching high, crackling like firewood soaked in old secrets. Ndali couldn't hold back. "Why are you burning it? What gate are you talking about?" No one answered. "He didn't even cry," she cried out, tears stinging her eyes. "He didn't even live. He just watched me. Watched me like he knew who I was." Baba Kamalu turned sharply. "Because he did." The flames popped. The wind shifted. "Your child wasn't born from silence," he said. "He was sent through it." Ndali's legs weakened, and she dropped to her knees. "Please," she whispered, "tell me what this is." The elders exchanged looks. Then Mama Ezebi stepped forward. "Do you know the story of your grandmother?" she asked. "No," Ndali replied. "My mother never spoke of her. Because your grandmother, like you, gave birth to a child that didn't cry. That child grew, but never spoke a word. Never slept. Never ate. He just followed her. Until the day the entire family vanished." A gust of wind blew through the compound, lifting ashes into the air. "The spirits punished her for what she bargained with," Mama Ezebi said. "The curse didn't start with you. But you've awakened it again. And this time, the silence is spreading." Suddenly, a child's voice rang out behind them. "Why are you burning Auntie Ndali's house?" Everyone turned. Chijiok, the 9-year-old neighbor boy, stood barefoot in the mud, staring at the smoke. He held something in his hand. A black bead. Ndali's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" "From the tree," Chijiok replied, pointing. "The one where you buried the baby." The bead slipped from his hand, rolling toward the burning mat. As it touched the ash, the fire hissed, then went out in a sudden burst of black smoke. Everyone fell silent. Then Chijiok laughed. But not with his usual innocent giggle. No, this was deeper. Almost adult-like. "He said to thank you," the boy said calmly, "for the name you didn't give." The elders froze. Mama Ezebi grabbed the boy. "Who said?" "Who?" Chijiok smiled, blinking slowly. "He's awake now." That night, no one in Agudanta slept. The Irako tree behind Ndali's house wept sap as black as night. The grave where she had buried her child cracked open, not disturbed by animals or rain, but from something below. Something pushing up. From that day forward, every woman who walked past that tree felt her womb twitch. And no birds ever landed on its branches again. At first, it seemed harmless. Little Chijiok had always been the curious type. The kind of boy who asked questions adults couldn't answer, who followed lizards into gutters and tried to make radios out of spoons and stone. But after the day he picked that bead from beneath the Irako tree, his silence became louder than thunder. For 2 days after the fire at Ndali's compound, Chijiok didn't speak a word. He didn't eat. He didn't blink. His parents, Papa and Mama Chiji, thought it was just fear. They had heard the rumors, that their son had spoken in a strange voice, that he'd thanked someone who wasn't there. They didn't believe it, until they saw his eyes. They were not the same. The brown glow in Chijiok's eyes had faded. Now, his pupils were tinted with something gray, almost bluish. Like a cloud trapped behind his gaze. At night, his mother swore she saw his eyes reflecting light, like a cat's. "We need to pray," Mama Chiji said, clutching her head one night. "Or take him to Pastor Induka. Or take him to the forest," Papa Chiji mumbled under his breath, eyes hollow. What did you say? Nothing. I didn't say anything. They did take him to Pastor Nduka the next day. Inside the small deliverance chapel at the edge of Agyadanta, the pastor laid hands on Chijioke's head. Father, in the name of Jesus, restore this boy, the pastor shouted. Chijioke didn't flinch. He just sat, eyes open, staring at the wooden cross behind the altar. Spirit of confusion, I command you, come out. Suddenly, Chijioke turned his head and smiled. Not the smile of a child. Not joy. Not innocence. No, this was a grin of amusement. Like something inside him was watching the pastor's efforts with pity. Then he whispered something. Everyone leaned in to hear it. You can't pray out what was invited in. The microphone screeched. The fans stopped spinning. And Pastor Nduka stumbled backward, pale. I can't help this one, he muttered. Take him away. This boy is not alone. Mama Chiji clutched her son and burst into tears. That night, Chijioke began to draw. With charcoal and palm ash, he sketched on the mud walls of their home. Scenes no one understood. Symbols, circles with eyes, mothers with no mouths, cribs filled with shadows. One image stood out. A hut, burning, with 3 small figures standing in front of it, holding hands. His father rubbed it out in fury. You will not draw death in this house. Chijioke simply picked up the charcoal again. But this time he wrote words. She will have more. Across the village, Ndali had not left her hut in days. She barely ate. Her lips cracked from thirst. Her hands trembled. But her belly was growing again. She stared at it in horror every morning, certain she was not pregnant. Certain she had not been with a man. But the swelling continued. And then came the dreams. She stood in a field of white cloths, hundreds of them, fluttering like ghosts in the wind. All were stained with blood. Each one had the face of a baby with its eyes open and mouth shut. In the middle of the field stood a boy, holding 3 beads in his hand. They don't cry, he whispered. But they know. She would wake screaming, clutching her belly, certain something was moving inside her. She went to Mama Yolanma, the ancient herbalist from the next village. They said she was blind in one eye, but saw the spirit world with the other. What is in me? Ndali asked, her voice hoarse. Mama Yolanma sniffed the air. Not what? Who? Then who? Those who were denied names are waiting to take yours. Ndali broke into tears. I didn't name them because they were dead. They were not dead, Mama Yolanma whispered. They were waiting. The same night, Chijioke wandered out of his house barefoot. No one saw him leave. The neighbors would later say they heard laughter, children's laughter, but no other children lived that close. They found him in the morning at the base of the Irako tree. He was seated with both palms facing upward. In each palm was a tooth, small, white, still wet with blood. He was smiling. His eyes were no longer gray. They were completely black. And when they asked him who gave him the teeth, he simply replied, My siblings. They said they'll come out soon. She's already opened the door. No one in Agyadanta dared to visit Ndali anymore. Children were told not to walk near her compound. Women crossed themselves when her name was mentioned. Even Mama Chica, her childhood friend, stopped bringing water. But whispers still flew like bats in the night. They said her stomach is round again. How? Her husband is gone. She hasn't even left the house. Some say she didn't need a man. That something else climbed into her womb. Ndali didn't know what to believe either. Every day she woke up heavier. Her breasts ached. Her spine felt like it was splitting in two. Her reflection, once soft, full of life, now showed hollow eyes, cracked lips, and something else. A shadow behind her. Watching. By the 4th week she could barely walk. She lit no fire. Ate no food. She just lay in silence, clutching her swollen belly, as something kicked from within. This is not a child, she whispered one night, tears streaming down her face. This is revenge. Then came the night of the new moon. She woke gasping, her wrapper soaked in sweat. The pain returned. Sudden, sharp, unnatural. Not like contractions, more like her bones were cracking from the inside. There was no time to scream. No one would come anyway. She fell to the floor, writhing in agony. Thunder boomed, yet the skies remained dry. And just like before, the air went dead still. No wind. No insects. Not even the sound of crickets. And then, silence. No baby's cry. Just breathing. But not hers. She opened her eyes slowly. There, on the mat, lay two children. Twins. Their skin pale gray, eyes wide open. Neither moved. Neither cried. Dolly crawled backward in horror, her back hitting the wall. Her legs trembled beneath her. No. Then the one on the right blinked. The one on the left turned its head, slowly, and looked directly into her eyes. And then, they smiled. The next morning, a goat herder named Okonkwo was the first to notice. As he passed the irako tree, he saw something that made him drop his staff and flee. Two small handprints on the bark, made from blood. Beneath them, 3 large slashes had been carved into the trunk, as if tiny fingers had claws. He ran straight to the elders. "The grave is split open," he gasped. "And Dolly, her roof is shaking. I saw it with my own eyes." A meeting was called that same afternoon. The council of elders gathered beneath the marketplace ibeji tree. Even Mama Ezebi, who had not left her hut in months, came. "She has crossed a line," Baba Kamalu declared. "But no one saw her pregnant," someone whispered. "Exactly," said Mama Ezebi. "Which means the children came from somewhere else." "We need to kill them," muttered one of the younger hunters. Silence fell over the gathering. Then Mama Ezebi spoke, cold and final. "You cannot kill what was never born." That evening, 3 teenage girls from the village decided to peek through Ndali's window, daring each other for fun. They giggled as they crept near her hut, their lanterns dimmed. But only one returned. Isioma. She was shaking uncontrollably, her wrapper torn, her feet bare. When asked what happened, she could only whisper. They were standing, not lying. Standing beside her. Holding hands. And one of them asked me my name. "What did you say?" her father demanded. I didn't answer. "Good girl." But then he said, "It's okay. We'll come ask again tomorrow." The next morning, Dolly opened her door. For the first time in weeks, she stepped outside, gaunt but strangely composed. Her belly was flat. Her eyes sunken but sharp. And in her arms, wrapped in dark cloth, were 2 bundles. She walked straight to the irako tree, knelt, and began to dig. Not with a shovel, but with her bare hands. She buried the bundles without a word. Then stood up, turned to the tree and whispered, "I release you." As she walked away, the wind stirred. Leaves rustled. And the tree breathed. That night, every dog in Agyadana howled. Chickens refused to lay eggs. Pregnant goats miscarried. And deep beneath the irako tree, the soil moved again. Only now, something else moved with it. Night came too quickly that day. The sky darkened not with the descent of the sun, but with the rising of a strange fog from the forest surrounding Agyadanta. A sickly green mist that curled around trees and slithered along footpaths like it was alive, searching for something. Or someone. Inside her hut, Dolly sat on the ground, hugging her knees to her chest. Her fingers were bruised and raw from digging. Her face streaked with dried tears and clay. But her mind had gone far. Far into the past. "Why now?" she murmured. "Why did they come for me?" That's when she heard the tapping. 3 slow taps, on her wooden window. She didn't move. Another tap. Then a whisper. "Go to Mama Yulama, before your name is forgotten too." Her eyes widened. She stood slowly, heart pounding in her chest like a talking drum. She grabbed a wrapper and tied it tightly around her waist. And without a word, without even checking to see who whispered, she stepped out into the night. Mama Yulanma lived beyond the river path, on the edge of the forbidden bush. Her hut was older than memory itself. It leaned to one side, covered in black moss, bones tied into charms hanging from the eaves like forgotten jewelry. Dolly reached it before midnight. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the room smelled of smoke, herbs, and old blood. Mama Yulanma sat on the floor, surrounded by white chalk drawings and burning candles. Her blind left eye was covered with a snail shell patch. Her good eye glowed faintly under the firelight. "I was wondering when you would come," the old woman croaked. "You knew. I knew when your shadow crossed your grandmother's. I never knew her." "And that is the first mistake," Mama Yulanma said. "You were never meant to forget her. You were born because she made a promise." "What promise?" The herbalist didn't answer. Instead, she reached for a calabash bowl and tossed 3 cowries into it. They clattered, rolled, and froze, each with a black stain spreading across its face. "You are her echo," Mama Yulanma said. Her name was Nwanyi's. They say she was beautiful beyond reason, skin like charcoal oil, eyes like night rain. But what they didn't say was what she traded for that beauty. Ndali's mouth went dry. Traded? She was childless for years. The village mocked her. Her husband threatened to marry another. So she went into the bush, on the night the moon disappeared. And she met a man who was not a man. A spirit. Worse. Mama Yulanma leaned in. A merchant of essence. A being who barters not with gold, but with wombs and souls. What did she give him? Her first unborn child. Ndali's knees buckled. She agreed to sacrifice her child? For beauty, for power, for a name. And she bore a child, your mother. But the curse was not the taking, it was the condition. What condition? That no child in her line shall cry at birth. Because every cry calls a soul. And the merchant no longer wanted to give souls, only take. Silence fell like a dead weight. You said I'm her echo. Yes. And the merchant does not forget echoes. Ndali began to weep. I didn't ask for this. Neither did your grandmother, truly. But her choice became your inheritance. How do I stop it? Mama Yulanma looked toward the flame. It flickered, and for a moment, 3 shadows danced on the wall, small and still. You cannot stop what is already walking. But you can bind it. How? The old woman opened a leather pouch and brought out a small bone comb. Go to the grave of your mother. Comb the soil. Call her name. And ask for her secret. If she answers, you will know what must be done. Later that night, Ndali stood at the old cemetery, overgrown with weeds and swallowed by vines. She found the unmarked mound at the edge of the Irako roots. Her hands trembled as she knelt and began combing the soil. Ma, it's me. Ndali. Your daughter. Silence. I know you didn't cry when you were born. I know you carried this alone. I have seen them. My children. The ones who never lived but never died. They wait in my blood. The wind stirred. Leaves rustled. And then, a voice, soft as the rustling of silk. I couldn't name you, because I didn't know who you belonged to. Ndali gasped. The soil shifted. And there, half buried, was a pendant, one her mother had always worn. On the back were 3 words scratched in haste. Do not name. Ndali fell to the ground, screaming into the earth. And far away, in her abandoned hut, 2 shadows moved in the dark, small, barefoot, and watching the moon rise. One turned to the other and whispered, She knows now. The other replied, Then it begins again. The village of Agyudanta had seen strange things before. Mad prophets had walked naked through the market, yam harvests had once turned to ash overnight, and thunder had struck a palm tree with no storm in sight. But none of that prepared the people for what Ndali did next. She walked into the center of the village square with slow, heavy steps, carrying a folded piece of cloth. Her eyes were hollow, her feet bare, and behind her trailed 3 small shadows, not visible, not physical, but felt. Every head turned. Even the Dibya, who rarely left his shrine, emerged from behind his curtain to watch. Ndali walked up to Papa Onwachekwa, the coffin maker. He was seated under his mango tree, shaving wood with a calmness that came from 30 years of burying people. She stood before him and unfolded the cloth. Inside were 3 measuring cords, each about the length of a newborn child. The old man's knife stopped mid-shave. You need a coffin? He asked, though he already knew. 3, Ndali replied, her voice barely above a whisper. For whom? The ones that never cried. The silence that followed was so deep, the birds flew from the trees. Papa Onwuchekwa wiped his knife slowly and stared at her. He had built coffins for twins, triplets, elders, and even a mad woman once eaten by a crocodile. But this was different. I can't help you, he said. Why not? Because I only build homes for the dead. And what you carry is still watching. Dolly didn't flinch. Then tell me who will help me bury what has no name. But Papa Onwuchekwa simply stood, picked up his tools, and walked into his hut. He slammed the door shut. The next morning his house was found empty. The door wide open. His tools scattered on the ground. On the table, 3 small bundles of hair, soaked in what smelled like milk and iron. Blood. And at the back of his workshop, carved into the wooden wall with what looked like a child's fingernail, was one sentence. You cannot build boxes for what wants to walk. The village spiraled. Fear settled like fog over Agidanta. Mothers kept their children indoors. Market women whispered prayers before opening their stalls. The church bell rang at odd hours, and the pastor's voice grew hoarse from endless deliverances. In the center of it all, Dolly remained silent. She spent her nights walking to the Irako tree, placing offerings, toy beads, rattles, milk. Each time she returned, more tired, more pale, like something was feeding from her. Then one night, a new fire was seen near the Irako grove. A hunter returning late saw her, and Dolly, standing before 3 small wooden boxes, not made by human hands, but by something else. The boxes were crooked, the wood rotten, yet they pulsed as if breathing. She was speaking to them. You can rest now, she whispered. You don't have to wander. The hunter swore he heard giggles, but not joyful ones. The sound was dry, hollow, like wind passing through a cracked drum. The next day, the hunter fled the village. He left his bow, his hut, and even his sandals behind. The elders gathered again under the abaji tree. This time, there was no argument. We must send for the river priestess, said Baba Camel. The spirits have outgrown us. What about the mother? Someone asked. What do we do about Ndali? Mama Ezebi shook her head, voice low. It's not her we fear anymore. It's what answers her now. That night, the river priestess was summoned. She arrived barefoot, draped in blue wrappers, her eyes glowing like water under moonlight. She didn't speak at first. She simply walked to the Irako tree, sat on the ground, and began to hum. The wind picked up. The ground quivered. And then, the humming stopped. They are not here to be buried, she said finally. Then what do they want? Mama Ezebi asked. The priestess looked into the fire. To be born. Back at her hut, Ndali rocked on the floor, whispering a lullaby her mother once sang. Sleep, O child, the rain is near. But when you wake, don't cry in fear. The walls creaked. The shadows danced. And in the corner of the room, barely visible, 3 pairs of small eyes opened. It was dawn when Ndali's scream shattered the silence of Agidanta once more. This time, it wasn't a scream of labor or loss. It was deeper, raw, jagged, as if her soul itself had torn. Mama Ejimaka, the prayerful neighbor who swore she would never step foot near Ndali's hut again, was the first to rush over. She was halfway through reciting Psalm 91 when curiosity overpowered her caution. She reached the door and found it ajar. Inside was chaos. Mirrors. Dozens of them. Small ones, large ones, some framed in old wood, others handheld, some so ancient they had turned yellow. All cracked. Single. What? The cracks didn't look random. They formed faces, twisted, childlike, etched in pain. Some were smiling. Others were screaming, mouths wide open with no sound. Ndali sat in the middle of the hut, arms wrapped around her knees, rocking back and forth. Her eyes were red, not from tears, but from staring too long into something unnatural. Ndali, Mama Ejimaka whispered, afraid to cross the threshold. Ndali turned her head slowly. Her lips were trembling. Her voice, when it came, was barely audible. They're watching me, from the other side. Who? The ones I buried. They don't sleep there. They live, in the glass. Mama Ejimaka looked around. There were mirrors even on the ceiling, tilted at odd angles, as if to reflect nothing and everything at once. The cracked mirror beside Ndali seemed to flicker. For a second, just a second, Mama Ejimaka saw movement. Finger. On the inside of the mirror. She screamed and ran from the hut, collapsing outside. Neighbors gathered. What is it? What happened? All she could say was, her mirror cracked from the inside. That same day, the river priestess returned. She came not alone, but with a spirit seer, a boy no older than 14, known only as Tobe, a child born blind but gifted with second sight. He stood in Ndali's compound and inhaled deeply. They're not spirits, he said softly. They're reflections of what was denied form. What does that mean? Asked Baba Kamil. They were never named. Never claimed. So they took the next best thing, her image. The priestess nodded. Mirrors are passageways, she explained. To the spiritless, to the unborn, to those too bitter to stay in the dark. If she keeps looking at them, one day, she won't see herself anymore. Inside her hut, Ndali was losing time. She'd wake up to find her wrapper on backward, her hair wet when it hadn't rained, or her feet muddy though she hadn't left her mat. One morning, she woke to find tiny handprints smeared in palm oil all over the walls. One was on her stomach. She screamed until her voice cracked. In desperation, she smashed every mirror with a pestle. Glass rained over her, slicing her arms, her legs, her face, but she didn't stop. She didn't bleed red. Not at first. The cuts oozed milky fluid, like breast milk mixed with ash. When the last mirror fell, silence returned. Then came the voice. From nowhere. From everywhere. You can't unsee us now. She turned and saw the 3 tiny shadows in the corner, flickering, out of phase with reality. One stepped forward. Name me, it whispered. Please. I can't, Ndali sobbed. Then we will name ourselves. That night, an unexplainable wave of madness swept through Agyadanta. A young woman was found laughing in the well, saying she saw her unborn twins swimming toward her. A teacher walked into the river with stones in his pockets, muttering, I finally heard them cry. Every mirror in the village cracked. Even ones locked in trunks. Even polished brass bowls used to see reflections. All of them. One after another. The ground itself moaned. The river priestess returned to the Irako tree and performed a forbidden rite. She dipped 3 kola nuts into her mouth and whispered ancient names. She spat them out. Each landed with the face of a child on its skin. It's too late, she said. What do you mean? Mama Ezebi asked. They are no longer spirits. They have become mirrors of desire. Every womb that passes this land will either birth them, or nothing at all. And deep in Ndali's hut, she slept at last. Only she didn't sleep alone. Lying beside her, as real as blood and bone, were 3 small figures, gray-skinned, wide-eyed, breathing slowly. One curled beside her chest. One by her legs. One held her hand. And in her dreams, they whispered, we don't need glass anymore. We found your body. The moon rose full and heavy, a pale eye in the sky. Its light poured like silver dust across the village of Agyadanta, painting the rooftops in cold glow. But that night, the moonlight was not peaceful. It was summoning something. In the far corners of the village, animals stirred. Dogs whined without cause. Goats kicked at their pens. Chickens refused to sleep, eyes wide, clucking nervously. And in Ndali's compound, the wind blew gently, only there. Leaves danced in slow spirals around her hut, though the trees were still. Inside, she lay fast asleep. And beside her, they stirred. The 3 children. They moved not with the clumsiness of toddlers, but with the grace of memory, like they had done this before, perhaps in another time, in another world. The eldest, his eyes completely black now, was the first to rise. He walked barefoot to the door, touched it, and it opened on its own. The moonlight greeted him. The second, a girl, followed. Her feet made no sound, but where she walked, the floor darkened, as if her steps sucked the warmth from the earth. The third, the smallest, crawled slowly, dragging a cracked mirror shard in one hand. They stepped outside and looked up. and the moon pulsed. Twice. 3 times. That was all the invitation they needed. They walked, hand in hand, into the village. And wherever the moon touched, they followed. The first house they passed belonged to Mama Nduka, the fruit seller. She was asleep on her bamboo bed when a creak woke her. She sat up, listened. Nothing. Then a voice whispered near her window. "Mama, I am hungry." She rose in panic, thinking it was a neighbor's child. She opened the door, and saw 3 small backs walking away, fading into the shadows. She dropped her rosary. Across the village, Isioma, the teenage girl who once peered into Ndali's hut, sat up in bed, shivering. Her hands trembled as she reached for her wrapper. Something was wrong. She felt a chill crawl up her spine, like someone was behind her. She turned toward her mirror. Cracked. Always cracked. Only tonight, it was not empty. Inside the fractured reflection stood a child. Silent. Holding her school ID card. Then the mirror burst. Elsewhere, Pastor Nduka prayed deep into the night, the Bible shaking in his hand. "Lord, surround us with fire. Blood of Jesus. Blood of..." A gentle knock interrupted him. He froze. 3 knocks. Slow. Rhythmic. Chugga. He dared not answer. He only whispered, "Not tonight." But when he turned to his altar, 3 small footprints were already there. Wet. And facing him. By midnight, the moon was directly above the irako tree. Its bark, once dry and ancient, now glistened like fresh skin. The carved marks had deepened into mouths, open wide, as if the tree itself was chanting without sound. The river priestess returned to the grove in haste, beads swinging wildly around her waist. She threw 3 cola nuts into the soil. They didn't bounce. "They're moving," she whispered. "But not to haunt, not to scare." She paused. "They're looking." "For what?" asked Tobe, the spirit seer boy. She looked toward the village. "For their place." Back in Ndali's hut, she woke with a start. The bed was empty. The silence was terrifying. She stumbled outside in panic. Children. Chitty. Ubayoma. Kamsi. She never named them. Not out loud. But somehow, the names escaped her lips now like instinct. And from somewhere in the village, a whisper returned. "We heard you." A candle flickered at Mama Ezebe's compound, where a group of elders had gathered for urgent counsel. The oldest among them, Papa Ifika, stood trembling. "It's happening again," he said. "Just like in 1948. Just like during Nwanyi's time." "We swore to keep that buried," one of them said. "We lied," Mama Ezebe spat. "And now they are digging it back up." A sudden gust blew out the candle. Then came the soft sound of children, humming. Ndali ran through the village barefoot, eyes wide, heart racing. And then she saw them. Her children. Standing in the moonlight, in the center of the square. Silent. Watching. The entire village had begun to wake, one by one, peeking from windows, climbing from beds. No one spoke. The moonlight dimmed. And the smallest of the children stepped forward. He opened his mouth. And for the first time, he cried. A high-pitched, glass-shattering wail. Not of pain. Not of fear. But of arrival. The sound ripped through Agudanta like a blade. Windows cracked. Lamps shattered. Pregnant women fell to their knees. And deep beneath the irako tree, something began to rise. Ndali had seen enough. She didn't wait for the elder's verdict. She didn't wait for the priestess. She didn't wait for her children, if she could still call them that. By morning, her mind was made up. If I can leave Agudanta, she whispered to herself, eyes hollow, maybe they won't follow. Maybe the curse won't cross the river. She packed no bag. She took no wrapper. Just herself, and the memories etched into her skin. She slipped past the neighbors before dawn. Past the old compound gates. Past the shrine of Izemuo, the silent deity. Past the market square, where 3 mirrors still hung above the palm oil stall, now shattered into perfect triangles. As she approached the forest edge, a strange quiet greeted her. No birds. No crickets. No footsteps. Not even her own. She looked down. She was not making any sound. Not even on the leaves. She entered the forest path. The trees bowed above her like mourners at a funeral. The sun struggled to shine through. The deeper she went, the dimmer the world became, until even her breathing felt borrowed. Then came the first sign. A child's slipper. Too small. Perfectly placed in the middle of the path. She stepped over it. 30 steps later, another. This time, a toy whistle. But polished clean. She stepped over it too. Then she heard it. Laughter. Not playful. Not cruel. Just watching. She broke into a run. Branches whipped her face, thorns clawed at her arms, but she didn't stop. She ran until her chest burned. Until her lungs screamed. Until she burst into a clearing. She gasped. Not because of the space, but because she recognized it. It was the same clearing she had entered from. She had gone in a full circle. She tried again. This time, she carved a mark into a tree with her fingernail, Ndali. Then she walked deeper, right, not left. Following the sun instead of the sound. 20 minutes later, she reached another tree. The bark read, Ndali. She fell to her knees. Please, she begged. Let me leave. Let me go. The wind answered, low and soft. You already opened the door. Back in the village, Mama Ezebi sat with the river priestess, her eyes closed. She was seeing something from long ago. Nwanyis tried to leave too, she said. She walked for 6 days. Every path brought her back to the same hut. The land remembers, the priestess murmured. It keeps what it was promised. So, Ndali, she belongs to the loop now. Ndali collapsed at the foot of the Irako tree. Sweat drenched her body. Her feet were bleeding. Her voice gone. And then, they arrived. Her children. 3 of them. Appearing from between trees like mist. No footsteps. No sound. Only breath. Cold and real. The eldest walked up and knelt beside her. We followed you, he said softly. Why? She whispered, too weak to cry. Why me? The girl placed her hand on Ndali's chest. Because you were the one who heard us. The youngest sat in front of her, smiling wide. From his palm, he held out something. A name tag, torn from a school uniform. Ndali. This name was given to you, he said. But we have another one for you now. What is it? The shadows leaned in. Together, they whispered. Mother of the unbirthed. Back in the village, the trees around Agyatan Ta began to bleed. Sap as red as blood leaked from bark. Birds flew in reverse flight patterns. Babies cried in the womb, before birth. A woman miscarried a pregnancy she didn't know she had. And in the well outside the church, 3 tiny shadows floated, smiling, visible only under moonlight. That night, Ndali returned to the village. But she didn't walk. She floated. Eyes open, feet barely touching the ground. Behind her walked the 3 children. One holding a cracked mirror, one holding a piece of chalk, the third holding a lock of her own hair. The villagers watched in paralyzed silence. She walked straight to the elder's square. She faced them. I tried to leave, she said, her voice layered, her own, and others underneath. The forest sent me back. So I will not run again. She turned toward the Irako tree. From tonight onward, she declared, let every child born in Agyatan Na be watched. And let every mother be warned, you may give birth, but they may answer instead. She walked back into her hut. The door closed. But no one saw her shut it. The villagers said nothing for 3 days. No drums. No markets. No laughter. Only whispers, fearful, trembling. No one approached Ndali's hut. No one asked how she returned. They watched from behind raffia blinds and cracked windows, as though even their gaze might awaken something worse. The children were seen again. Always in 3s. Always silent. Sometimes near the school's abandoned swing set. Sometimes beside the river, toes dipping in the water without leaving ripples. Sometimes, worst of all, standing behind women washing clothes, staring into their reflections in the basin water. Pregnant women began to dream of names they hadn't chosen. A midwife delivered a stillborn with open eyes and a smiling face. The priest resigned. And the Irako tree? Its bark had cracked completely down the center. The split resembled a mouth, gaping and hungry. Meanwhile, deep inside her hut, Ndali was not sleeping. She sat in silence as her 3 children circled her slowly. One drew symbols in chalk on the floor. Another pressed hands to the wall until images, shadows of unborn things, burned onto the mud surface. The youngest curled up in her lap, humming. "They will come for us," she whispered, brushing his ghost-like hair. "Let them," the boy replied. "We are not the only ones." "What do you mean?" The girl spoke then. "There are others. In other villages. Other wombs. Forgotten, abandoned, claimed. We are the first to rise," the eldest finished. "But not the last." Ndali stood. Her voice was steady now, too steady. "Then I must prepare the village." She stepped outside into the sun for the first time in weeks. And the sun dimmed. A village meeting was called. This time, no one argued. They sat in a wide circle, faces pale, eyes bloodshot. Even Mama Ezebi, who once ruled every conversation, sat silent. Ndali stood before them. Alone. She no longer looked human. Not monstrous either. Just emptied. Like someone who had cried all her tears in another life. "I am not asking you for help," she said calmly. "I am telling you what comes next." The wind howled through the trees, though the leaves did not move. The land has remembered the debt. It has awakened what was buried. And now, they walk. "What do they want?" a young mother cried. "What do they want from us?" "Names," Ndali said. "And places. And mothers who do not run." The river priestess stepped forward, her face a mask of ancient grief. "Can we offer something else? Another sacrifice?" "No," Ndali replied. "Because it is not death they seek anymore." She pointed to the cracked Irako. "It is birth." That night, the soil of Agyadenta churned. Graves swelled and cracked. Not the graves of adults. The ones without names. The shallow plots. The quiet corners. The secret places where babies were buried without ceremony, without song. One by one, the mounds burst open. And from them rose not skeletons, but children made of mist and memory. They walked into the village square. And the moon turned red. Inside her hut, Ndali sat cross-legged with her children. She took the chalk from their hands and drew a final circle on the floor. Inside it she placed 3 items. A broken comb from her mother, a bead from the Irako tree, and a single tooth, her own, which had fallen out that morning. "What is this?" asked the youngest. "A return," she whispered. "Of what?" "My name." She pressed her bloody thumb to the floor and whispered, "Nwanyi's." A tremor shook the ground. Somewhere in the village, a woman cried out in labor, though she was not yet due. The river priestess called the last meeting. The village gathered at the Irako tree, now split wide enough for a person to walk through. Ndali stood before it. "This is where it ends," she said. "Or begins." One by one, she took her children by the hand and led them to the tree. The wind howled. The earth moaned. And they stepped inside. The tree closed behind them. Silence fell. For a moment, it seemed done. But then, the ground cracked open beneath the tree. And from its roots, more children began to rise. Not just Ndali's. Dozens. From across generations. Their eyes wide. Their faces calm. They walked into the village, not as ghosts. Not as monsters. But as reminders. Epilogue. Agyadenta was never the same. No more children were buried without names. Every newborn was sung to. Every cry was welcomed. And the tree? It still stands. But no one dares touch it. Because sometimes, when the moon is full and the wind is still, you can see them. 3 small figures. Waiting. Watching. And smiling. Because what was buried now walks. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell for newly created content.